Good morning, everyone. Nicole, Sarah, do you want to just briefly introduce the webinar, what we are trying to deliver the message with the audience?
Yeah, welcome everybody. I think we'll wait just a minute here. I see lots of people jumping in, and then we will get started with talking about the new CBE-LSE section. Everyone is named Miriam Segura.
I think we're all coming in from another Zoom link.
Oh, God, yes. And I'm gonna add our slides once again to the chat so that people have them. I guess we won't know when the real Miriam shows up.
I assume she will put her video on.
Yeah. I think she's had to step away and make sure everyone had the correct Zoom link.
Yeah, I was just over there. She's still directing people.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Thank you. There she is.
Who's the real
Hello,
Miriam?
hello. Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm so sorry. I will probably, after I do my slides, will have to dip out and go back to the other Zoom link to redirect folks who are there. Just for those of you who didn't know, there was a snafu with the Zoom links, and we have two Zoom links, and so that's where I was. So apologies for starting late. Sarah, are you able to share and click through my slides? I'm so sorry. I was going to share myself, but
Yeah,
we're a little late
not
now.
a problem. And
Awesome. Thank you.
I will also make sure that they're in the chat. But let me just make sure I have what I need. So Miriam, do you want us to go ahead and get started?
Yes, that'd be great. And Sarah, if you just want to share in the chat, I can also pull them up.
Oh, yes.
So I don't,
I've
so you don't
also
have
got the
to.
slides open. I could share.
Okay, Nicole. Yeah, let's do it so we don't keep people waiting.
Oh, you guys are looking at the wrong. You're probably looking at the presenter view. Okay. We're gonna do, there we go. You should be seeing the slides now.
Awesome. Thank you, Nicole. So welcome everyone. Thanks for being here and taking out of your time to come to this information session. Today, we are going to talk about a new section that we've started for CBE Life Sciences Education, or how we like to call it, LSE. It's the Evidence to Practice section. Next slide.
Sorry, my
That's
slides are not
okay.
progressing. There we go. Okay.
And that happens to me all the time. So I just wanted to start with introductions. I'm not sure if everyone's here who's on the slide, but most of us are. What I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce myself and then just pass it on to Nicole. And then I want you guys to say a couple of sentences about, who you are, where you're at, and how you're doing work with LSE. And so I will start. I'm Miriam Segura. I've been a biology education researcher since around 2009. And ever since August of 2025 of last year, I became the editor-in-chief of LSE. I've also been a senior editor at the Jimby Journal, also biology education research, and an associate editor at Frontier STEM Education. I am so happy to be with you guys here today. And with that, I will pass it off to Nicole.
Hello, everybody. I am Nicole Kelp Sullivan. I'm at Colorado State University, where I have been since 2020. It was the COVID year. And even before that, I was doing a little bit of biology education research, and my focus is on science communication education. And I joined LSE as a monitoring editor just within the last year, and have been helping formulate this new ETP section along with Melissa and Sarah and Miriam. So I'll hand it off to Melissa.
Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa McCartney. I am at the University of Buffalo in the School of Medicine. I work mainly with undergraduates in the biomedical sciences. I've been doing BER work since probably 2015-ish, a couple different places, a couple different ways. But I'm very happy to be here working with my team and getting this new section off the ground.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Fankhauser. I'm in the biology department at Oxford College of Emory University. So this is a pretty unique institution. We only have students for 2 years, and then they go elsewhere, mainly to Emory's main campus. I've been there since 2015 and have dipped my toe in science ed research and then kind of jumped all the way in the last few years. And my work is mainly on science communication and science identity work. And I'm also a senior research editor at Jimby, but I am delighted to be part of the working group that put this section together, and excited to see the submissions we get. Okay, I'll pass it to Jamie now. Yeah.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, everyone. I'm Jamie Sable. I am at The Ohio State University. I am the director of the Center for Life Sciences Education and also an associate professor in the Department of Molecular Genetics. So I also primarily do work with undergraduates, primarily with metacognition and other ways of us thinking about how students learn complex concepts, particularly in biology. I am coming on as senior editor for this section, and I am also a senior editor over at CourseSource.
Excellent. Thank you, Jamie. And I am not sure if Stanley's here. Stanley? He may not be here. He is our most recent addition to this fabulous senior editor team for the section. He is. Stanley, do you want to? So he's not able to speak. Okay, I might just work behind the scenes to maybe see if we can get him speaking here, but later on. So next slide, please, Nicole. Thank you. Excuse me. So I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm going to give you an overview of LSE, just in case you're not familiar with the journal and why you should publish with us. First of all, our scope. We accept and welcome manuscripts in life science education at all levels, from K through 12 through graduate and even beyond, right? We've had papers published on faculty topics as well. We are interested in articles that are focused on learning in biology, of course, in life sciences. Also, though, biology and life science intersection with other areas of STEM. So if you're working on something like that, we would love to see it, but just keep in mind that it does need the manuscript, and the study does need to connect back to the life sciences for it to be within our scope. We serve faculty at all sorts of institutions, from large research universities to comprehensive universities, primarily undergraduate, 2-year colleges. Also at K through 12 schools, if you're doing K through 12 research, we'd love to see a manuscript from you. And also places where informal learning happens, such as museums and outreach programs. The two big strands of manuscripts that we look at are The first one, generating new knowledge in the field of science education. So these are the studies that are really generating theory and evidence and advancing the thoughts in the area, in the field. And then, of course, what good would we be if we talk about and generate all this research and evidence, but we never connect it to practice? So we are also interested, and that's the focus of this evidence to practice section, in studies that take this knowledge, right, take this evidence and translate it and implement it into practice. Next slide, please. Why publish with us? Well, LSE is a very highly regarded journal. It's indexed in many databases. I listed a few of them there. It's an open access journal. So it means, right, it's indexed so people can find it easily. It's open access so people can access your paper, your research easily, freely. And because it is indexed, it is part of the Scopus analysis of journals. And this is done not just by citation numbers, but also impact of the publications in the journal. And I'm proud to say that LSE is in the top quartile, the highest quartile of the journal. So that's why you should think about publishing with us. Next slide. I'll give an overview of the sections, and then I will pass it on to, I believe, Nicole to talk in more detail. So we're going to talk in detail about the evidence to practice section today. But I did want to address what we're calling the evidence building section, which is basically the original LSE section. We used to really, the majority of the manuscripts we receive are based on producing this theory and building evidence. The article types are very similar between the two sections, but there's some differences you'll see. For evidence building, we have research, brief reports, reviews, perspectives, and research methods. Again, we're not going to cover details for this section, but I've put the website with the information for authors for the journal on this slide. And then a little later, I'll pop it into the chat as well, so that you guys can have access to those details if you want them. Requirements, like I said, more detail in the website, but we do require rigorous evidence of effectiveness and supporting your research questions, rigorous experimental design, and alignment between the evidence, experimental design, and the research questions. Now, evidence to practice section is, like I said, the more applied section. Article types, like I said, very similar, but we don't have the research methods in this section, and we have field notes, which we're going to talk about in more detail later. Field notes are actually not live in this system yet, but they will be very soon. We wanted to make sure we got that information out to you guys anyways. Like I said, the focus is on applying the evidence, so applying the theory to a classroom intervention. And requirements, we require multiple iterations of this intervention. More details will follow. And we also require rigorous data showing efficacy. So most of the time that this is going to mean direct methods for assessing efficacy, but that's not always the case. Some constructs do, can be assessed through self-reporting. With that, I am going to pass it over to Nicole.
Okay, let me get unmuted here. So I will talk about the research articles and the review articles. And so this is within the evidence to practice section. And we really wanted to highlight that there still is research in this section. And these will just be more applied research questions. So maybe I'm going to use, for example, Jamie does research on metacognition. And so maybe you're not generating new theory or doing a bunch of interviews of how students are thinking for this evidence to practice section, but maybe you have a metacognition intervention that you do in a classroom and you want to describe that intervention and you have some pre-post data or something that could fit this evidence to practice research article. Or for example, work I do teaching students how to communicate about vaccines. Maybe I create a intervention and I do some research on its efficacy, and I've repeated this intervention multiple times. Maybe at first year and fourth year, and I want to compare. So there's still some sort of research question. There is data, but it is centered around some sort of intervention you're doing in the classroom, how to teach a particular thing. We also want to support replication by our readers. So having robust supplemental materials can both how to do the activity in class, whatever it is, as well as how to assess student learning of whatever the topic is will be important to make these really robust articles in the evidence to practice research section. I also am going to go over the review articles. And so like any review, we want to synthesize what's known on a topic across multiple publications. And within the evidence to practice section, how this can be really helpful is there might be a lot of things published on, I'll use my personal example, and I know this is the case. We have a lot of publications in the literature on interventions to teach students how to communicate about vaccines. If I'm an instructor out there and I want to do something in my classroom that's evidence-based, and I look and there's 10, 15 publications of different people's interventions, hard for me to know what the best practices might be, what the most effective lesson might be for this topic. And so having a review that pulled all those things together, compared the interventions, compared the evidence of efficacy, and synthesized to some best practices would really help me as an instructor. And so for you as authors, this might be an opportunity for you to synthesize these different published things, whether they're in LSE or CourseSource or JIMBY or any other journal, and synthesize those best practices, or compare contrast. Maybe how do I teach genetics to first year students in general bio versus genetics to fourth year students in a 400 level genetics course, and what are some ways to scaffold? And I'm going to review these different published articles together. Lots of different ideas here of what you could do. Potentially even looking at different methods of collecting evidence of efficacy for these different classroom interventions. So still in this evidence to practice vein, how are we doing really practical classroom interventions that have good evidence, but when there's a ton of that in the literature, reviewing it could be a useful tool for researchers and instructors. Going to now hand off to, I believe, Melissa for perspectives.
Yes, this is me. But we had a question come in, Nicole.
Oh, I did not see the chat. Thank you. Let me pull that up.
Is the learning confined to students in classrooms? What about faculty development programs?
Great question. Like Miriam said, for LSE, the spectrum of learning. So whether it's in a classroom at the K-12 or undergraduate or graduate level, or informal learning in like a community-facing thing like a museum, or faculty, I think, yeah, if there's an intervention you've done to train faculty in how to do active learning in their classroom, whatever, I think that could be totally appropriate for this section. Great question.
Okay. I'm here to introduce the perspective section. Like most perspective sections, ours will also be presenting a personal, expert, or interpretive viewpoint. So the key here is viewpoint needed for the perspective articles, and ours would be specifically to some kind of applied life science education. So how are you taking life science education and applying it wherever that might be? There are some examples here that might resonate with you, maybe work you're doing, maybe work you're thinking of doing. But general, here's a non-exhaustive list of what we would consider as a perspective topic. Can you offer critical insights into some type of applied life science education? Is there a new direction for research you can propose? Can you challenge any conventional wisdom? What do we already know about applying life science education? Do you have a new idea for it? Contextualizing findings within a broader theoretical or social framework, stimulating discussion, proposing new ideas, interpreting recent findings, and reflecting on key developments in the field. So these types of perspective would pretty much mirror the kind you would submit to LSE in general. But again, we have that applied life sciences focus. So whatever topic you're thinking about doing for a perspective, make sure it somehow is in the classroom with students, somehow either across time, across levels, across institutions, something along those lines. And then brief reports. Again, this will mirror what we see in the general LSE section, but these are basically just more focused, maybe a little shorter, maybe a little quicker. implementation and publication process. But again, it's with the application of life science education. So similar to brief reports in the general LSE section, we expect a direct connection between research findings and practical applications in the classroom. Here again, a non-exhaustive list of some examples of what we're thinking about and looking for in this section. Novel or preliminary data that represent a significant advancement or innovation in pedagogical practice, confirmatory or negative results that address prior findings, educational, pedagogical, or methodological innovations, and descriptions of local context-specific interventions within the broader implications. For example, community case studies or curriculum interventions. And again, this really mirrors what we find in the general LSE section, but it should be supported by evidence. And again, with that application in the classroom, whatever that classroom looks like for you, it just needs to be applied.
And Melissa, I'm not sure if you saw in the Q&A, there's a question for brief reports. Will the expectations still be data from across multiple terms?
Yes, somehow either across institutions, across time, across levels, some kind of, yes, more than just this. It can't just be a single application one time. It should somehow be repetitive, whatever that looks like for you in your study.
Okay, I'm going to jump to field reports. I think this is Sarah.
All right, so the field reports are a new article type for LSE, and the idea of the field reports really originated as we were considering how researchers may operationalize the connection of their research to practice. And so what we envision the field reports to be are more personalized accounts of pedagogical experiences written in the style and using similar approaches to what one might use for autoethnographies. And so they should focus on the instructors or educational researchers' personal or collaborative pedagogical journey. And so I do want to mention that collaborative submissions are absolutely welcome. And connecting their pedagogical journey to individual or shared experience to broader life science education context. So it's not just the reflection of the experience within the classroom or teaching or informal context, but how that may connect more broadly to what we know about science education. These articles should employ systematic qualitative methods and various types of data, whether that might be student artifacts or teaching journal, something to base the analysis on. And I would say that the distinguishing difference between the field reports and the research articles is really about the type of data being used and the lens of the analysis. So whereas a research article might be using, as Nicole mentioned, like pre-post tests with students, these field reports are the data for these field reports are going to be not necessarily the student assessments, but other types of artifacts. And I'm just checking the chat to make sure there are no questions. Okay, and that is it. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Sarah. Just popping in here for a little bit more information. Again, in the information for authors section or page for the journal, you'll find the guidelines and guiding questions for reviewers for this section. I also put the links to the actual documents in the chat. Why are we sharing guiding questions for reviewers? Because this is basically how reviewers are going to be looking at articles in this section. And so it will give you an idea of what reviewers are looking for, and hopefully will give you an idea of how to structure your article so that you can respond to those questions that reviewers will be asking themselves. And with that, I think all the informational part of this is done. Nicole, if you don't mind advancing one more. And we will open it up for any more questions that you guys might have. I will say that Eric, who's here as ASCB webinars, he is the person who looks at LSE at ascb.org. If you have questions, you can send questions there. It'll eventually get forwarded to me. I will also put in my email in the chat, and senior editors and members of the working group, if you guys want to provide your email addresses, if people have questions and want to reach out, put them in the chat. I didn't want to just put them out there without your permission. I'm going to put mine in there. And really, we wanted to leave a lot of time to field questions from you guys. So any questions? No question is silly. Like we tell our students, there are no stupid questions. Nothing?
Oh, there's a question in the chat from one of your doppelgangers, Miriam. Can you give some examples of published CBE articles that would have fit in the ETP section if it had been available at the time?
Yeah, why are there so many Miriam Seguras? Anyways, yes, so I was actually looking for one that Melinda Owens, who is a monitoring editor for the section and both sections, sent me, and I can pop that into the chat as well. Just notice that when you open this link, it's this article has a section called theoretical framework that is not a required section for the ETP. For this section, you can include it if you'd like to, but you don't have to. And what was I going to say? The other thing is that we do require some extra information. I think we went over it with materials that will help people implement the intervention. So that's different from what it used to be. So, but this is a kind of a good general guideline. We're in the process of reviewing some of the first manuscripts for the section. So we will have some exemplars, hopefully within the next couple months. Great question.
I think there's another question in the Q&A box that I didn't know existed on Zoom until right now. But the question is, your acceptance rate is listed at 29%. What are common reasons for rejection?
That's a great question. Yeah, so I would say, well, one of the most common reasons is lack of alignment between research question, instruments used to gather evidence to test those questions, and the study design, which includes obviously the instruments. So many of the manuscripts we receive will, especially the practical ones. So that's something I'm so glad you asked that question, because a lot of people say, well, we have this course and we just ask students how they liked it, and we ask faculty and everyone's happy. And that at LSE, at least, there might be other journals that are okay with self-report, but at LSE, you have to have, for example, your claim is that a particular program is going to increase retention of a certain group of students in the major, for example, you need to have actual data that shows that students were retained, as opposed to students saying, yes, I'm going to stay here. So that's a really common reason. Another common reason is the iterative process. So if there's a study that was done and it's not replicated over semesters or across instructors or in different institutions. So that speaks to generalizability. So LSE, for us, it's very important that the claims that are made are generalizable to the extent they can be, right? We can't be everything for everyone, but and also that there's alignment between the claims that are made and the evidence that's shown in that, if you can generalize to the population in your major and your institution, then those are the claims you're going to make if you can't make claims for the entire US, for example. So those are two of the things I can think of. Can anyone else? Anything else? Another thing might be also the novelty. So we have gotten some manuscripts that they don't really extend what's known. And this is especially talking about the evidence part, the evidence section. And now in the practice section, it's a little different because if you can show, so you have to find that gap, right? In your introductory section, the background and motivation, you really have to say, okay, how is my study advancing what is known? How is my study different from what's out there? And so in practice, it might be a little easier to find that gap if you are working with a student population that has not been studied before. For example, our colleagues at two-year colleges, you have a wealth of information you can gather there. So yes. Let's see. I'll go ahead.
There's one in the Q&A again. We're getting both chat and Q&A. That can you envision an intervention study that belongs in the evidence building section of LSE? And I would say yes, if your intervention is focused on kind of digging into theory and you're working on, I want to see if I can help students increase self-efficacy and you're digging into Bandura's theory or something. Like if the intervention is more focused on that theory building and you're using it as that research tool, I would say absolutely, versus it's more, this is a thing I want to use in my classroom and maybe more apply the theory. That would be how I'd answer that, Miriam. I don't know if you want to add anything further.
No, that's great, Nicole. I would add that a study that came to mind is Julie Stanton's metacognition work. She has done interventions to stimulate metacognition in students, but in doing that, she obtained data to where she basically established a progression in metacognition development in undergraduate students. And so that she is actually, her work has contributed to the theory of how metacognition develops, but she did have an intervention, right? Metacognitive interventions to stimulate the data. So it's about, gathering evidence for studying a process, right? For example, versus, okay, here's what should work. Does it work in my context? Kind of thing. Okay, so how do you submit to ETP? Great question, by the way, in the Q&A. Do you self-designate as an ETP submission? Yes. So I'm so glad you mentioned that, or you asked that. Yes. Once you go into the system, there will be an option for you to select, and actually evidence to practice is right now listed, and you're wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, or Eric, it's listed as a special issue just because within the system, that's the most efficient way to get us to be live. Hopefully in time, we will become just another regular section. But for now, you have to select special issues and then evidence to practice. And that puts an ETP designation on your manuscript. That being said, if you don't, for any reason, just go ahead and submit, or you can't find it or whatever, just go ahead and submit, because what happens is the manuscripts get routed to senior editors. And if we find that it's not a fit for evidence development or evidence section, then we'll move it over to practice. So you're okay either way. Oh, I'm glad it's been helpful. So a question in the chat, two questions. What is the expected word count for the manuscript for ETP? And what does the publication fee for ETP look like? Are there any discounts or fee waivers available? Okay, so the expected word count is going to be in the guideline document, the ETP section guidelines, and I will tell you that it follows pretty closely with what the other section has, but let me see, I've just pulled it up. For full research articles, it's 30 to 60,000 characters. Brief reports, 15 to 30,000 characters. Perspectives, 15 to 25,000 characters. And field reports, Sarah, do you remember what we had said? Because those aren't live yet.
That is a good question. I don't think we talked about it, or at least it's not in my notes.
Okay, so I would say for those, I would imagine they'd be around the same length as a regular research article, I think, because those are pretty rich.
Yeah,
Maybe. So, but
yeah, no. I think that is exactly right, Miriam. Actually, I'm just trying to think back to our many conversations, and I think we decided that there might be flexibility with the upper limit, given that the types of data we expect to see would be obviously like on the qualitative side, which is generally going to lead to a longer article.
thank you. Yes, that's right. And Yurong, who is the publications director at ASCB, and she handles the page charge or questions, publication charge questions, has answered the publication question in the chat. It's publication charges, I should call it that.
There's another question in Q&A.
Yes. Do you want to read it?
Sure, yeah.
Nicole?
Can a report on implementing a summer program for training faculty be published through this medium if it demonstrates the impact in terms of numbers? What else would be needed for this to be considered?
Yeah, so I can start and you guys can jump in too. Basically that speaks to alignment between your either research questions or in the practice section, problem of practice or goals, right? So if your goals are to training faculty to be published, so an increase, this program will result in an increase in publications, faculty publications, then you have the numbers that would align, right? So it's just all about alignment of the goal with the outcome and the evidence that was, generated. Sorry. Anyone else want to jump in and say something?
I think we would want you to see you do it more than once. Not a one-time intervention won't work for this section. That will work for something like CourseWorks. So if you have a course source idea and want to build it out further and further, this is where those manuscripts could live. But I think you want to do it more than once with a different group of people, different institution, whatever that looks like for you. And then also when you do submit, just remember that we'll need the materials for your summer program, like the agenda, worksheets you did, and slides you're willing to share, those kinds of things, so somebody else could replicate it.
Thank you. Yeah, guys, remember, less is more. That was great, Melissa. Thanks for adding that. Sometimes people think like, I'm going to include all the data. Just focus your data to align with the questions you're asking. And yes, for LSE, there needs to be, multiple implementations for sure. Let's see. Is ETP from LSE different from course source science behind the lesson articles? Okay, Jamie's saying yes. My inclination is to say yes as well, but I have not published with course source. So if someone has and wants to jump in, Jamie, I don't know, you're saying yes. So.
Yes. Yeah, I can. So yeah, the science behind the lessons is really digging more into, kind of the theory or the actual scientific processes, mechanisms, things like that. So this is definitely different in that we're looking at things that have been implemented multiple times. So it's not about the science behind it. Certainly that will be part of the rationale for, in the literature review and those aspects of the papers. But definitely different in that it's getting more into multiple iterations, what this looks like in different contexts.
Thank you, Jamie. Another question in the Q&A, what if the intervention curriculum slides are published in a space like CourseSource? So we still build on it. So absolutely, you can build on it. So let's just say that this is something you published the description of it. And now you have, decided to study a particular aspect of it. Does it increase motivation in students? Does it increase whatever? Self-efficacy, I don't know. And so, yes, so you can just basically build off of that and just cite the fact that you have published this already and then go from there. But it does, whatever you publish or whatever you submit to LSE has to be substantially different from what's published elsewhere. And in terms, and I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in as well, because there's a conversation that I think is interesting going on in the chat about faculty professional development and having a control group. And I don't know that, to me, in my mind, a control group, I mean, you could design a control group, right? The faculty who didn't do the professional development. But I think that having that iteration and having larger numbers would allow you to still derive conclusions from, your program and how it's working without the need for a control group.
Yeah, if
I don't know if
you're
anyone
doing
else.
like a quasi-experimental within subjects design or something like that.
Yeah. The other Miriam also added some information to, pre-post as well, yeah. Is there an expectation that data is shared in the supplement? I'm all for reproducibility, but sometimes it can be difficult to share education research when there's sensitive data collected. We do have some questions about the availability of data. And that brings up another thing, that all studies with human subjects need to be approved by an IRB, Institutional Review Board, approved, determined exempt, whatever. So they will, thank you, Sarah. Thank you for being here. You will need to get approval from them, and they will determine what is shared and how, and that will be part of the approval. So yes, we don't expect you to share anything that would identify the subjects or anything. So hopefully that answers the question. Let's see if there's anything else. Any other questions? Like I said, while we wait to see if there's any last minute questions, we're here for you. Go ahead and contact us if you have questions, thoughts. If you want to run, if you have an abstract or a manuscript like a draft of your manuscript, feel free to share it out with us and ask, would this fit? Like, can you give me thoughts? Okay, so someone asked, I know you've been an editor for Jimby. How do you see, several of us have been actually, how do you see, or are right now, how do you see this section as different from Jimby research articles? Nick, and Sarah just left. She's actually, senior editor for research articles at Jimby right now, right? Nicole, do you have thoughts, or do you want me to jump in first?
I'll add a little bit, but I'd love you to add. So yeah, I'm not a senior editor, but on the editorial team for the Jimby curriculum articles. I think there are some differences. I think one thing with the LSE that we've talked about is that what is that type of evidence and replication? And so making sure you have more, if you are doing like student self-report measures, it's not just like maybe not just grades, maybe it's a validated instrument to measure a particular thing, or is your replication across institution or years instead of just you did it twice in two different classrooms. Having a level of, maybe not all of those things, but having some level of the rigor of your evidence for your claims, I think would be something we're looking for in the ETP section here. Miriam, anything you would add?
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Nicole. I think also, yes, and I think also the extent perhaps to which the field has moved forward in practice. So I know that when I was a senior editor at Jimby, sometimes, it can be smaller, like, very incremental, very, very small, excuse me, addition, excuse me. Whereas for us, it might, that gap that you identify might need to be something that we're like, okay, this has not been looked at, right? And I'm not saying every single study needs to be novel, right? Like, so you might not be studying something that's no one has studied before, but you're looking at it in a new population, right? Or you have tweaked it somehow and now you're looking at this version of it, versus perhaps GMB research articles might not be looking for that level of novelty, in my experience. And thank you, Yurong, for the information on IRB approval. Yeah, and like I said, honestly, like we're all very approachable. And we, don't be afraid to email us and ask, especially prior to submission, because we would rather give you tips and hints and, feedback prior to submission rather than, maybe have you submit and not go out to review when you could have changed something and gone out to review. And since we don't have other questions coming in, Stanley, I'm so sorry that you weren't able to talk before. Stanley is our newest addition, a great addition to the senior editor group. So go ahead.
Thank you. I posted my introduction in the chat earlier, so I think we're good here, but we're happy, as Miriam and others already said, we're always happy to discuss any questions or help with thinking through ideas together. So.
Thanks, Stanley. I'm glad that, Min, you think that E2P will be helpful, and that is exactly what we want to do. We want to reach out and support and really get manuscripts submissions from the faculty who are teaching more, the teaching faculty. These are the people who are in the trenches, right, in the classroom, and we want to know what they're finding, what they're doing. So yeah, absolutely. Okay, I think if there's no other questions, thank you all for being here. Thank you to the team for being here, and we hope to see your submissions and to get your questions. Bye, everyone.